It is low-key one of the best week in all of sports, and welcome into the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. I'm the editor-in-chief of ColoradoPreps.com, Dan Mormon, editor-in-chief of Mile High Sports Magazine, Doug Ottewill. With me, as always, Dougie, still wearing that good throwback hoodie that I saw you in on opening day.
I'm still chilly.
We're going complete brand manager. I've got my Colorado Preps gear on, a little bit of Masters. I mean, it's Masters week.
Yeah, that's true.
One of Valor Christian's favorite son, Wyndham. Huh?
You got a draft, a little fantasy Masters draft going on?
I'm trying to figure out. I might be putting together a little bit of a just for fun wager with a friend of mine. Just no stakes, just good old fashioned. Let's root for our guys. But that's a different problem for a different day. Dougie, Valor Christian's favorite son, one of Valor Christian's favorite sons, Wyndham Clark, will be teeing it up in the Masters this week as he looks for his second major of his career. Wyndham's going to be a part of our conversation a little bit later, but as we start every show, or before we get into this, though, the new issue of Mile High Sports Magazine is out. You can check out the digital edition at milehighsports.com. You can find it out at one of our many distributing partners around the Denver area. I'll have some down in the Colorado Springs area as well, and it's the high school rankings issue, Dougie, and you do a great job of putting that list together and making sure all your
team effort. I know you're a big part of you're a big part of keeping me in check on that issue.
Well, you always come in and say, okay, here's my spreadsheet and how we're going to crown the winner with all the data, and I just look at you and say, just tell me when it's time to make sure the schools are spelled correctly and we've got the right mascots labeled.
A lot of fact checking involved.
That's right. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to be discussing a lot of the content in the magazine. We're going to kick that off in our second segment today. But now, as we start off every show, we talk about what's on our upswing, Dougie. And I always do this. I always have it written in a certain order, but I'm going to pivot to you, and I'm going to let you go first. What's on your upswing?
I'm going to go to girls lacrosse. We mentioned them last week on the show, but I saw there was a story on the homepage of the Mile High Sports, the ColoradoPreps.com offering here this weekend. Arapahoe girls lacrosse, 4 straight wins, had a big win this weekend over Air Academy 20-11. Freshman Sydney Thomas scored 4 goals. I always think that's pretty impressive when a freshman steps up like that. But I also kind of look around the landscape of girls lacrosse. Columbine Rebels, ranked number 10 in the state. They got a big win over Legacy heading into the weekend, so they'll be moving up as well. They have a matchup against Kent on Tuesday night. That should tell us a lot about the Rebels and if they're going to be climbing the ladder up, as we get to state. Both programs kind of on the rise. So upswing to Arapahoe girls lacrosse and Columbine girls lacrosse.
I'm thankful for our producer, Danny Bailey, taking me off screen there so I could navigate to the spring championship coverage calendar. If you're going to start throwing out this knowledge, so we're going to pencil you in for that 5A girls lacrosse state championship game for spring state championships here, which begins, oddly enough, Dougie, in less than a month. It feels like we just walked out of the Denver Coliseum for basketball.
Yep. No rest for the wicked.
And we're going right into to the spring stuff. But I'm actually going back to the fall for my upswing because this is something we haven't touched on, something we should have touched on as it happened. But Chris Helbig, the former Holy Family standout, had a heck of a playing career, so much so that our old friend Anilo Piro texted me about him. Played collegiately at Southern Utah, returned to Colorado last fall to take the Westminster job, led the Wolves to a league championship and playoff appearance. And as you see right there on the screen, he was just named the head coach of Broomfield High School, taking over for our friend Robert O'Brien, who led the Eagles to a state title in 2024. I actually bumped into Broomfield athletic director Tyler Zappia at state basketball and was asking him about his job because, we're always trying to work ahead. So walk by him and say, hey, you got a new football coach for me to update our tracker on? He goes, in the coming weeks. I don't think he knew that Chris was going to be the guy at that point, but he looked at me and said, this is an appealing enough job that I think we're going to be taking someone's coach. So as we fill a vacancy, you're going to have to add a vacancy.
Well, it is appealing. I mean, you think about, the quality that they have at running back. And then they've got Matthew Merilatt, one of our upswing featured athletes, coming back healthy this fall at quarterback. Was one of the best quarterbacks in the state last year and we're hoping that he's back and healthy and proves to be that again this year. So, Chris Helbig steps into a nice situation for sure.
That's right. And Matthew Merilatt is coming off of his recovery. And you know where there's a great place to get some good recovery, Dougie? Our friends at Upswing, located at 7460 South University Boulevard in Centennial. For young athletes pushing their limits, Upswing offers a safe, guided space to restore strength and energy. That's not the case with Matthew. He's restoring more ligaments and, knee structure. But for those kids who are training hard and needing that recovery, whether it's, a spa, a sauna, Upswing compression boots, whatever you want, Upswing has it for those young athletes. They need that recovery because there are experienced coaches at Upswing offering a safe, high-performance environment, and Upswing helps those young athletes discover their true potential. As always, I say this every week, it sounds expensive, but earning an Upswing scholarship can launch a young athlete toward their next big win. As we look ahead, of course, over the next few weeks, the next big win could be at, boys volleyball state tournament, boys swimming, girls tennis, track and field, baseball, lacrosse, soccer, golf, you name it. It's all coming up in the coming weeks. For more information, check them out at upswingfoundation.org, or again, you can just check out the facility located at 7460 South University Boulevard in Centennial. Normally, we would bring in our guy, Jermaine Stafford. Jermaine is on assignment this week as the head track and field coach at Lutheran. He's always a busy man. So he let us know that he'll be on assignment for today's show. But and we're looking forward to having him back next week. Hopefully, looking forward to getting him up to Welsher Golf Course on April 22nd. We'll have more on that later. But we're starting today's show, Dougie. We are in the middle of spring state championships, but we are going to kind of take a little bit of a detour in the conversation because the headline, we got winning bets, and not necessarily wagers, but bet sisters. Lauren and Sienna, part of that UCLA women's basketball team that beat South Carolina last night to capture the NCAA Women's National Championship. Lauren was named the tournament's most outstanding player. She had herself a day yesterday, scoring 14 points, grabbing 11 rebounds, also had 2 assists and 2 blocks. Sienna comes off the bench for the Bruins, played 7 minutes, 4 key rebounds through the course of the win. And it was just good to see from the Grandview alums, right? You and I both watched Lauren and Sienna win state championships for the Wolves. The shot that we just flashed on screen, your picture from, I believe that was the 2023 state championship game. Sienna won it, and the first thing she did was run over to the boards where big sister Lauren, and I don't know if Lauren was at UCLA at that point or if she was coming off her first year at Stanford, because she started at Stanford, transferred to UCLA. But we spotted Lauren early in that game, and it was awesome to see the embrace between the sisters when Sienna was able to get the Wolves to the 6A state championship. I think we were doing 6A stuff at that time. So I was kind of poking around a little bit, Dougie. Lauren is projected to be a top 5 pick in the WNBA draft per CBSSports.com. They have her going to the Washington Mystics. And I don't know if she would be. I got to check back. This is where I didn't have time to do the research, but that's going to be one of the highest selections ever for a Colorado high school product.
Yeah, it's got to be. I'm trying to think of some of the others, and some of the other ones came, in the early days of the WNBA, so it wasn't as probably systematic as it is now with scouting, and that's impressive to be a top 5 pick. A little birdie told me that those girls might make more in NIL than they will in the WNBA. So come on, WNBA, let's go, let's pick it up.
So your last first round pick. And your only other first-round pick, actually, from a Colorado high school product. Let me see if this sounds familiar. Grandview alum, UCLA standout, Michaela Onyenware.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6 overall to the New York Liberty.
Yeah, I remember we talked about her, when we were talking about Brianna Crittenden breaking an all-time record and some of the great players that have come through. Onyenware is a heck of a player, and top 10 pick. I didn't necessarily realize that until you just said it, but that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Credit to the CHSAA.com database on the WNBA draft history for Colorado high school players. So, all right. So 2 questions I want to get in here because I was really looking into the Bet sisters and UCLA winning the national title. I was hanging out a little bit in downtown Colorado Springs, walking home, not a long walk for me, and just kind of gave me some time to bounce some things around in my head. First question I want to ask you is, although she's been gone from the high school scene for a long time, I want to say Lauren graduated. She might have graduated in 2020, the year that COVID hit.
Right.
What is her place right now in terms of being the best or greatest in girls basketball, one of the best or greatest girls basketball players in state history? And the caveat that I would throw at you is I would consider the best and the greatest to be 2 very different things. So that's kind of where I want to pick your brain when you think about what do you think about when it comes to Lauren?
I think here's one of my kind of side tangents on this topic, but I think, when you're talking about the sport of basketball, your bigs are always going to get overlooked. They just play, and especially the Betts sisters, they played with such a steady pace, and they were always around the bucket, always getting, rebounds and easy buckets, but they also had such a great presence in the post, such a high level of skill in the post. I think that those types of points come with fewer highlights. When you're talking about Brianna Crittenden, for example, who graces our new cover, her highlights are exciting. She's playing a slasher role. She's shooting deep threes. She's cutting to the basket and creating shots. And that's not to say that either of the Betts girls did not do that or could not do that, but I tend to think they were just so steady. They had a presence both on offense and defense because of their size and because of the impact that they had on the game. So I think that you have to put them very high up in terms of the best. And I'm not sure. I'm going to let you go off on your difference between best and greatest, but what those 2 sisters did for their school has to be considered, especially if you're including winning into this conversation. I think when I think of the best players that have ever played in Colorado, I think of Abby Wayner, probably first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brianna Crittenden has to be in that conversation. We talked on one of the shows earlier in the year. It'd be fun to watch those 2 players play each other in their prime because I think they were similar in terms of just the skill set and ability to hit mid-range, long range. I'm trying to think. Gosh, I mean, there's been a lot, but those are the 2 that kind of stand out. And then you have, the Betts sisters. I don't know how you don't put them on that list. Ann Struther's another one I should have mentioned earlier that I think just the level of skill that she brought to the game. And she was kind of one of those, I wouldn't say she was a pioneer because you had Tracy Hill that could score the basketball so well. Mm-hmm. But Ann Struther was nationally recognized. And she was another one that went immediately from Colorado to a UConn program that was always a national contender. If memory serves, she also played in the WNBA. I don't remember where her draft slot was, but certainly accomplished. So in my mind, it's kind of a, say, 5 or 6 girls that I put into my best of all time in Colorado. It's Wayner, it's Crittenden, it's both of the Betts sisters and Ann Struther. And then you could also throw in Tracy Hill as far as just a pure scorer, someone who could just score the basketball and did a lot of things before there was an NBA, a WNBA, and really before there was even, I would say before college basketball was even as prominent as now. I'd throw in, those 6 as far as kind of just, you can debate all you want for who's number 1 versus who's number 6 and everybody in between. I'd even throw in Tanya Have of Evergreen, a tremendous player that wound up at Tennessee and won an awful lot there. again, she played a lot of professional basketball. I believe she played in Australia before there was such a thing as a WNBA. So, if you want to go with your top seven, I think you'd put those seven. And I know that that's riding the fence, adding who's the best, but I think you literally could make a debate for any of the seven.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where there's no wrong answer probably in this.
Right. I will say, I still go back to this though. Bigs in basketball, they just don't get their credit. They affect the game so much. And from watching both of the Betts girls play in state championships, they just had an impact on every possession offensively and defensively, because of their size, because of what they meant to the middle of that defense, and how they had to be respected in the post and double team. I mean, every single possession, those girls impacted the game.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm trying to put this into the proper context, because I think if we're trying to use some decent data points to identify, like, what does the best mean, and for me, I think we always go back, right? And you said her name right off the top of your list is Abby Wayner. I think a lot of people would regard Abby as potentially the best girls basketball player in Colorado history overall. She would get a lot of number one votes. And I think if I was voting on something like this, I actually think I would put Lauren first. And a part of that is she was just utterly dominant when she was at Grandview, right? She made life miserable for a lot of other players in the state. And you got to remember, she was the number one overall recruit in the nation for her class. And that's a really hard thing to overlook, right? And not only that, this is going to kind of lead into the second part of this whole discussion that I want to get into, but she backed it up. She helped the team to a national title, and she won the most outstanding player. Like, for her class,
what more can you ask?
Right. And I think, looking at legacies and looking at greatness, which is kind of part two of this question, something like this is definitely going to help her case, right? But I think just on pure talent, skill, and accolades alone, I think in a couple of years, and last week I was preaching a lot, because we saw, we were talking about Oliver Horton and some of those standout track results, appreciate the greatness that we have that's happening right in front of us. And this kind of, ties into that a little bit, because I'm not quite sure. It's hard for me to think back to that time, because so much was happening, not just with, high school sports, but the world. Like, did we appreciate Lauren for the basketball talent that she was at that time? And that's a tough one. But I just think given, nothing she did this weekend, elevated that status for her from the high school standpoint, right? Her high school resume speaks for itself. But I think now that we are far enough removed and being able to see how she continued her career, I actually think if you were going to ask me who the best high school girls basketball player in state history is, I think my answer would be Lauren Betts.
I think it's a really good answer, and it's very well thought out in terms of accolades, living up to expectation, all those things that you outlined. I think the tricky thing for me, and maybe something that when anyone's having this debate has to put out on the table, who is the best as a Colorado high school player, or who is the best when you look at their body of work afterward? Because take for example, this girls discussion, I believe both Abby and Ann won national championships. I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they both did. And I'm not positive, but I want to say that Tanya Have won one at Tennessee also. So, I mean, like, they all lived up to expectation. On the guys' side, I think it's a really obvious answer when anybody says who's the greatest boys basketball player to ever play. Most people say Chauncey Billups. Well, Chauncey's body of work, both in college and professionally, is tremendous. But I think if you're really looking at it, is it a whole lot different than Derek White, who has had a tremendous NBA career. No one thought of Derek White as one of the best players to ever come out of Colorado, but he's certainly become that. I think, if you're looking at, it was funny, we play the old man's pickup game before the state finals. One of the guys that played in that game said, even at the time, Chauncey wasn't the best basketball player in the state. It was Johnny Reese, which guy I played against at Manual. Johnny Reese was tremendous, one of the all-time greatest basketball players that's ever come out of Colorado. Won 3 out of 4 state championships, started as a freshman on a team that featured Chucky Sprawling at Manual. Just a tremendous player. He didn't go on to have necessarily as decorated of a college career as say Chauncey or Derek White, but while he was in high school, he was one of the greatest players I've ever seen. So I think it's a fun debate. It's ripe for defining how you're measuring greatness. And if it's, hey, what did they do as a senior in high school? That's a different conversation compared to what have they done in all their years. And I think, the Chauncey Derek White thing is a really good example of that, because no one, no matter how good of a prognosticator were you could ever say that Derek White was one of the best players to ever come out of Colorado. He is now, but at the time, no one said that.
Right. And so that actually leads me to the second part of this discussion is, what does, winning a collegiate national championship or something like that do ultimately for a player's high school legacy? And do we kind of use that to inflate what they were as a high school player?
Certainly. I think, again, Derek is the best example. I mean, look, there's no knock on a kid that's a late bloomer. I mean, no. Not only did we not know about Derek White when he was in high school, but neither did any college. I mean, he wound up going to UCCS, and granted, he excelled there. He did what he needed to do there, but he bloomed later. I don't think that takes anything away from him as a high school player. I think it just makes his story more unique, that he blossomed later.
Yep. And so I want to bring up a couple of points, and you rattled off a couple of them. I mean, Derek White being one of them, but like we look at that class of 2019 in girls basketball, because you had Ashton Prechtel, Fran Beliebe, and Jana Van Geitenbeek. We famously had them on the cover of the Preps issue in 2022. They were all at Stanford, and they won the national championship in 2021. The 3 of them were contributors on that team. Ashton was the only one who actually got drafted into the NBA, or into the WNBA. But when I think back about that, I mean, the one that actually stands out to me, a couple of things. Fran was dunking, felt like every week, right? So her legacy as a high school.
It was the Flash, for sure. Yeah.
And Jana Van Geitenbeek, that Cherry Creek team in 2019 that won the state title, I think she made that game-winning shot either around or above Lauren Betts. And
I don't remember over whom, but I do remember that she was the one that hit the shot.
And she attacked the basket. And that was the key. That's why I want to say it might have been around or over Lauren. I'm sorry if I'm not trying to knock anyone, but and it's one of those moments where I would say Jana Van Geitenbeek, for that accomplishment for Cherry Creek, who had gone so long without a girls, like, she might be one of the greatest girls high school basketball players, not because of statistics or anything, but because of legacy, and then adding it to what she, Fran, and Ashton were able to do and go win a national title for Stanford. Lauren was committed to that Stanford team. She was, very much, I think she was very close with that group of girls, and then ultimately ended up going to UCLA, and Sienna joined her. But when you look at other players across the board, right, does anything that Christian McCaffrey has done from the professional or even the collegiate level when he was a Heisman Trophy finalist, he certainly didn't need to do that to bolster his high school resume, right? Because
I would actually argue that he did, because in my mind, Christian McCaffrey was the greatest player that we as Coloradans had seen in quite some time. We thought he was. Nationally, I think people questioned it. I think coaches near and far wanted to turn him into a safety. It's not PC to say, but no one ever views, he's going to be the next great white running back. But that's exactly what he was. And it doesn't matter what color the guy was. He was in phenomenal running back at every level. And kudos for him, because the story that I always heard, and maybe I don't have it right, but I always heard that CU essentially wasn't too high on him because he didn't want to turn into a DB or a safety. And so he said, fine, I'll go to Stanford. And then he should have won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
I mean, he did it all. He was a tremendous player, special teams, receiving the ball, running the ball. He did everything that everyone that ever doubted him said he couldn't do. And then he went on and did all that same stuff in the pros. And he's a gold jacket, Canton Hall of Famer, no doubt in my mind. So I think, the fact that we thought he was great in Colorado was wonderful, and we never doubted him. But around the country, I don't think anybody saw or expected Christian McCaffrey to do what he's done.
Right. So I guess the context I want to frame this in, and then we're going to rattle off a couple more examples. But like, if you were sitting in the discussion room picking a CHSAA Hall of Fame class, do you need Christian McCaffrey being an all-pro NFL running back to help make his case as a student participant for the CHSAA Hall of Fame? My answer would be no.
He was great all 4 years.
Right.
Great. Not even debatably great. Great.
Right. Do you need to do that with someone like Nate Solder because he protected Tom Brady's blindside?
I would say yes, and I would only say that because people look. He came to CU as a tight end, so people did kind of know him as a pass catcher in high school because he was a really big athletic kid. But what he evolved into, including while he was at CU, is the stuff of legend. And then he goes on to win. I don't even know how many Super Bowls protecting Tom Brady.
He might have just gotten one.
Really?
One or two. I don't think he got as many because he wasn't part of that like dynasty run.
But he was in more than that, right?
He might have been in more than that. Yeah.
I mean, just either way, tremendous player, and in just an all-pro season in, season out. I mean, I think he did need to do what he did to add to his legacy.
Okay. Wyndham Clark winning the U.S. Open. Is that something that boosts his profile as a high school golfer?
I would say I couldn't tell you what he did. I want to say he won state championships. And
he won a state championship.
This one, I know he was featured in Mile High Sports Magazine as a prep. I think he was one of our high school athlete of the year candidates. So we always believed, hey, this kid is special. But you win a major, that's on another level. And I think it fair or not, I think people look back and go, they may not reinvent someone's high school career, but I certainly think they go, that's cool that he came from Ballot Christian.
Yep. And so then I would make the same argument for someone like Jennifer Kupcho, who was very, very good in high school and winning. I think it was the Chevron or whatever that odd fifth major is for the women, kind of boosts her profile.
Take Kupcho, for example. Would you say that she was better, equal, or not as good as somebody like Haley Shaw, who was dominant her entire high school career, but hasn't necessarily had the post career accomplishments that Kupcho's had? It doesn't make either one of them, doesn't change their high school career at all.
Senior year Jennifer Kupcho versus freshman year Haley Shaw is an 18-hole match I would have really, really enjoyed watching.
Both phenomenal.
Yeah. You mentioned Derek White, right? I would actually say like Derek White's high school basketball career was, he's never someone I've never really jumped into the numbers on. It was good, but what he will do in the NBA would be the entire reason that if he were to go into something like the CHSAA Hall of Fame or the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame, it's what he's done really at the NBA level that would fuel that.
For sure. I mean, as great and as highly as we hold Chauncey, I think Derek's accomplishments in the NBA are already pushing what Chauncey did. And Chauncey's a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. Will Derek White become a Hall of Famer? I think if he wins another title, he probably is. He's been super good, really, really good.
Yeah. Very, very undervalued coming out of college, I would say.
Yeah.
And then the last one I had was Luke Hochaver. As a Kansas City Royals guy, you should know a little bit about Luke. And, if someone were to ask you, where do you play high school baseball, Doug, what would your answer be? I'm putting you on the spot.
No, Golden.
No. Fowler. He's from Southeast Colorado.
That's right.
And I'll tell you, because he played baseball. He played a lot of club baseball with my brother Noel, and Luke was good. Luke was really good. He was good from the time he went to Tennessee. He was good from the time he got into the major leagues when he was the number 1 overall pick. I want to say for the Dodgers. But Luke was a good baseball player, but because he went to Fowler, he was a 2A player of the year at the time when Fowler was really good. But he probably, if someone was going to discuss him for a CHSAA Hall of Fame type situation, I think being the winning pitcher in Game 7 of the World Series is probably something that pushes him over the top.
Yeah, for sure. And baseball is an interesting one because you have these, number one, you have kids in a spring sport, which we've talked about a lot on the show recently, that generally tend to get, I don't want to say overlooked, but compared to, say, football or basketball, they just don't get the attention because it's spring sports. And just human nature, people are checked out. They're not paying nearly as close attention. So I don't think that baseball players, by and large, get the same amount of attention as a good football player or a good basketball player. I could be told differently, and I would be okay with that, but that's just my opinion. But you look at some of the great baseball players, and then what happens to a baseball player is that even if we do know them, they're great in high school. They either go to college or they go to the minors, and then they kind of disappear for 3 or 4 years because, let's be honest, very few people pay attention to college baseball, especially in Colorado, and even fewer pay attention to minor league baseball. So these guys that come out of the state that are great, and then they all of a sudden one day they're on a huge stage in the majors, and we go, oh yeah, that kid's from Colorado. I mean, think of all Danny Jackson from I believe he was Aurora Central. You've got
how about David Bodie from Faith Christian?
David Bodie from Faith Christian, and a really good one. Brandon
McCarthy, Cheyenne Mountain, a lot of them.
Yeah, Lamar's had a couple. Think of blanking on the most famous one.
Scott Ellerton.
Ellerton. I mean, he was a great player. Even Gosman, he pitched in the World Series, I believe, a couple different times now.
Yeah, for Grandview.
So. I mean, and that's a guy that, like, right or wrong, again, I don't know that not many people know that he's a Colorado kid, but he's been on huge stages. So, I mean, Mark Knutson, North Glen graduate, started opening day in 1993, I believe. The list goes on about guys that have kind of had great baseball careers in Colorado and then fall off the radar. And then all of a sudden you go, hey, that kid's from Colorado, when they're pitching the World Series.
Yeah. You mentioned Mark Knutson from North Glen High School. We're going to be surrounded. It's a Norse dominated show today because we're going to get into some magazine content after this. We're starting off with the way that the magazine leads in, Doug. We're going to start off with your dad. And for that, we're going to bring in a friend of yours who penned a really, really nice column last month. And that is DenverSports.com's digital editor, James Merilatt. And he joins us right after this.
When I go to court, these aren't my clients. These are my friends. These are people that I believe in. And they have one shot, just one shot for justice. If they've come to me and we've gotten a trial, their life has been turned upside down in some awful way. I'm all they have. So if I haven't put the time in, if I haven't trained, if I haven't humbly looked in the mirror and thought about ways I can be better, and I don't present my best self in court, then I failed them. And that's what motivates me as a trial lawyer, because when this is over, that client goes home. And if I haven't done my best for him, I haven't been his champion, then I've failed.
A little more slack. Come in.
Whoever said work smarter, not harder, didn't realize you could do both.
This is Tim Anderson of Gordon Insurance, and we are proud to support all of our area athletes. With offices in Lyman, Callahan, Flagler, Sterling, and Kit Carson, we offer all types of insurance, including home, auto, commercial, farm, crop, life, bonds, and workman's compensation. We are independent and thus can offer you multiple choices of companies, not just one. Call or visit the office near you, and one of our agents can take care of you. See all of our contact information by going to www.gordonins.com or call me at 719-740-1361.
Golf season is here, and Denver Golf Passes make it easier than ever to play. Start your golf journey with Learn and Play 1.0. 5 clinics, 5 rounds, 5 buckets. Already playing? Take your game up a level with Learn and Play 2.0. Or grab the Friends and Family Pass. 20 par 3 rounds and 30 mini golf or range sessions. And for new players wanting reps, the Practice and Play Pass gives you 10 rounds and 15 range buckets. Find the pass that fits your game. Visit cityofdenvergolf.com.
Welcome back into the Colorado Prep Show, presented by Upswing. Dan Mormon, Doug Ottewill with us. The new issue of Mile High Sports Magazine is out. The annual high school rankings issue, which means we've got a lot of magazine content to talk about over the coming weeks. And Doug, I figured today, as we start getting into that, we should start with page 1 of the magazine, and that's the lead where your dad, Bob Ottewill, look at that guy, former CHSAA commissioner. Honored with a couple of pieces. You, of course, wrote one that we published on coloradopreps.com and got published on milehighsports.com. Another one came from the digital editor of denversports.com, James Merilatt. And James joins us right now, co-founder of Mile High Sports. We should point that out. And as I'm looking at the time and realizing we're going over that.
Really, that's what you should point out. The founder.
As we're going over that 11:30 mark, I'm having nightmare flashbacks of being stuck on I-70 traffic, hoping that you're stuck in just a little bit worse traffic so that I can get in the door just ahead of you. But James, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
What's up, fellas? I think of it every Thanksgiving, Dan. I always have that flashback.
Every Thanksgiving. Okay, yeah.
James, where are you? Are you like in a club? Looks like you got a high-backed leather
You look like you're in a bunker.
You got bottle service in front of you? Or?
Don't I look like I'm about ready to help Artemis 2 land on the moon? Something's going on here, right?
That's impressive.
I am in the KEPN AM 1600 studios.
Okay.
So, down here at Bonneville, which is home of the Fan, KYJO, Cozy, all that stuff. This is an empty studio. It's got a good backdrop, so I went with it.
As good as any. James, I asked you to come on because it's outside of maybe CHSAA and Mile High Sports, there wasn't a lot written necessarily about Bob. And I thought you did a great job on your piece at denversports.com of not really talking about Bob Ottewill, the CHSAA commissioner, but Bob Ottewill, the guy, because you've known him since you were a kid and growing up. What made him such an ideal person to kind of be the front man for Colorado high school sports?
Well, I mean, obviously he did a great job as the commissioner. And, I knew a lot of people would talk about that, write about that, mention that. That's what he was most known for in the state of Colorado when you reach the highest level and run that organization. But for me, he was someone who just, found the joy in sports. So growing up next door to him, his house, Doug's house, was the mecca for everybody in the neighborhood to go play wiffle ball, round the house football, basketball, you name it. There was always something going on. Everything was a game, right? If it was a rainy day, we could turn throwing corks into a vase into some sort of game, some sort of contest. So that was something that made an impact on me in my life, something I've passed on to my kids where, everything is an opportunity to keep score and to have a competition. But not only that, it was also a place where absolutely everybody was welcome, right? So it didn't matter what age you were, what size you were, how athletic you were. Everybody could come over and play. And it didn't matter if you were Big Al, the Kitty's pal, or, Bo or Lando Lakes or whatever the case may be. Everybody had a nickname. Everybody was welcome. And everybody came out to compete. So that was just the part of Bob that made a huge impact on me. And I know it made a huge impact on my friends and a lot of other people that were in the neighborhood and in the community. And it's something that continues to be passed on generation to generation. I'm not saying the stuff he did as commissioner didn't have an impact. Obviously it did. It touched thousands and thousands of kids. But for me and my little slice of it in North Glen, that was the big impact that he had on me, my friends, my family, and it continues on to this day.
Well, James, I always kind of tend to think that like someone's resume is impressive, right? What you did and putting them on a list and having everybody go, man, you're a part of this, you're a part of that, you did this, you did that. It's impressive. But I think what your column did and what I really appreciated about it was that it was personal and it was very interesting. I think even I got a little different glimpse of my own dad when I read your piece, because you had such a different personal take on him as a guy. I was curious, even after reading it, was there one or two specific memories that sort of clicked with you that said, hey, this is somebody that I want to emulate, or this moment had an impact in your life, even if you didn't realize it at the time? Is there anything specific that stands out to you along those lines?
Man, I mean, there were just so many of them, I guess. And I don't know if it was necessarily specific, Doug, but it was more like, when we're playing wiffle ball, right? It felt like it was every day during the summer. It probably was. And the fact that your dad would create all these different characters, and when he was batting, he would use one stance and he was hot patah, and he would use another stance and he was some other guy that he had made up, and just the imagination of it, right? And that carried on into, my life. And, when we first started the magazine, not to let any state secrets out here, Doug and I basically wrote every word of the first issue, but the staff bar had like 18 names in it. It was just a bunch of made up names that Doug and I came up with, basically tapping into, the creativity that we learned from Bob.
Probably a lot of wiffle ball players, if I'm not mistaken, that wound up in the staff bar.
I mean, he wrote in the magazine as Pencils Robinson, which was a made up guy he had originally as a wiffle ball player, that I knew him as. So that was certainly something that made a huge impression on me. I think in terms of career wise too, Doug, just being at the wiffle ball tournament every year, and it would be Mike Monroe and Terry Fry and these guys that I read every day in the newspaper, whether it was the Denver Post or the Rocky Mountain News. I never thought that those people, I thought they were larger than life. And then you see them out there and they're just like, they're normal people. They're hanging out. They're having a beer. They can't hit a lick. I'm like, okay, all right. This is maybe a career path that I could go down. These people are human too. So that was always great. The fact that we would play basketball and our buddy Sin would always get yelled at by your dad if he didn't hit the outside hand with the pass, right? Like there's a right way to do things. Even if you're just playing pickup basketball in the driveway, you still got to do the little things right. That obviously made a huge impression that goes way beyond sports, right? 99.9% of us, I heard you guys when I was waiting to come on talking about all the great athletes that have played high school sports here in Colorado. 99.9% of us aren't going to play beyond high school. Heck, a lot of us aren't even going to play in high school, but it's those lessons that you learn. And for me, I learned them, playing pickup basketball in your driveway, Doug, where your dad is teaching us, hey, it doesn't matter that we're out here, playing a, pickup and we're playing to 21 or whatever. We're still taking good shots. We're still hitting the outside hand. We're still moving without the basketball, those kind of things. So, I mean, I could carry on and on and on and on about examples like that, but those are a few that certainly jump to top of mind.
Well, I always, and I'm sure this has happened to you occasionally. You run across somebody who knew my dad that's in our industry here in sports media, and they say, "Oh yeah, I got suspended once because I got one too many technicals." Paul Cleat of the Colorado Gazette always reminds me, I got suspended once by your dad because I had one too many yellow cards in soccer. And my reply is, yeah, well, James Merilatt and I got suspended more times from our own yard in our own driveway than anyone that's ever played a varsity sport in Colorado. My dad, Dan, would sit James and I down for fighting, for arguing, for being
No. James fighting and arguing? I refuse to believe it.
There were weeks where no one was allowed to play because until we decided we could get our act together and play nicely. We were not above the law of the commission.
Well, that kind of leads me into this one for you, James, is you've been doing this and really analyzing the professional teams around town for a long time. And you see what each sports commissioner needs to be, right? You know that Roger Goodell needs to act a little bit differently than Adam Silver, a little bit differently than Rob Manfred. I'd love to get your thoughts on ABS because I know what a major advocate of instant replay you are, but that's another topic for another day. What was it about maybe that environment that Bob created that made him, the right guy to lead an association for high school kids? Because every commissioner, has to go about their avenue differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a few things. One, Bob loved every sport, right? So you can't just be a football and a basketball guy and run CHSAA. There are, 25, 26, you guys would know better than me, varsity sports at the prep level. So I think that's part of it. The fact that, you didn't have to be a star to be someone that Bob loved to be around, right? It didn't matter if you were the kid who could come over and dunk in the driveway, which there weren't a lot of us. It was, we were growing up on Clare Circle in North Glen, or someone who could just, throw it 90 miles an hour with the wiffle ball. You could just be anybody. And if you wanted to play, Bob had a place for you. And to me, that's what high school sports are all about, right? So it's whatever the sport is, and it's whatever your level of ability is, you still have a place, you still are respected, you're still represented. And I thought that's something that Bob did really, really well. I mean, I was around him for the entire time he was commissioner. I met him before he got that job and then knew him obviously throughout that entire time. And I never remember him playing favorites with any sport, any class, any school. It just didn't matter. And, that to me, if you're going to have that job, that's what you have to do, right? Roger Goodell, it's a lot of the criticism he gets is because he's favoring one team or another. It seems like it's unfair in terms of how he applies the rules and the letter of the law. Bob wasn't that way. You could be the volleyball team out on the Eastern Plains. You could be the softball team on the Western Slope. You could be Valor. You could be Fowler. You could be whatever. And he treated everybody the same and applied the rules the same. To me, that's the key to that job. And when you've got back in the day, Doug, it was probably 300, 400 high schools, and they're all playing a ton of different sports. You got to be pretty well-rounded, and you got to be pretty fair about the justice that you're putting out there. To me, that's what made Bob perfect for that job.
Great piece that you wrote on denversports.com. Doug, anything else you want to lay out? I'm sure we've got to let James get back to his staff. It's Nuggets, Avalanche, all that's winding down. So,
well, one thing, James, maybe you could reset this just for fun, but I always thought, and I wrote about it in this month's issue. I always thought it was kind of funny that to you and I, my dad always thought, hey, this magazine, great idea. Go get it, guys. Go do it. We later found out from Irv Brown that the two of them were sitting around one day, not far from when we launched, and they're saying, these two guys are crazy. What are they doing? This thing isn't going to work. And lo and behold, it worked largely because of guys like my dad and Irv that kind of helped along, put the good word out, made connections, whatever you want to say. But is there a day or a moment within the magazine that you remember that, it was kind of like, hey, Bob, thanks for the nod here. I mean, I've got my own list, but I was just curious for you. He was obviously a part of what we built. And if there was any memories that you had along those lines.
I just think the fact that he was willing, two things. One, to put his name on it, right? Like to write for it and to put in work and, never take a dime for it, just to volunteer and want to be a part of it. Like, to me, that kind of gave me the belief that, hey, we're onto something here. If Bob wants to be a part of it to any degree, that obviously is a sign. And then, when we got started, part of it was, we're two knuckleheads that were 29 years old from North Glen. We don't know anything. We don't know anybody in the industry, but we put together the advisory board. And primarily, Doug, that was people that either your dad knew really well, or the fact that, his name got us in the door with some of those folks. And we were able to have that as some credibility, whether we went to other writers or went to designers or went to advertisers of, hey, look who's on our advisory board. That was mainly because of the fact that your dad was associated with it to some degree. So that really helped us get started. And I think if we don't have that, I don't think the magazine gets off the ground. So that, and it's the belief, right? We didn't know that he thought it was a harebrained idea, but the fact that in our mind he believed in it, that gives you confidence. That sometimes confidence goes a long way, even if it's false confidence. And that certainly did it for us. One other thing, your dad gave me one of the best pieces of advice of all time, which was be slow to take offense. I'll never forget that. Right? Like, especially in today's day and age, in 2026, everybody's offended by everything. Like, it can tick you off. I mean, you guys know me, I get ticked off at the drop of a hat. Everything can tick you off. But to really be offended, I think is one of those things. It's like, man, I can't think of the last time that something truly offended me. That was a piece of advice I got from Bob Ottewill. Be slow to take offense. I think that's something we could all take to heart, especially in today's day and age.
I try to offend Mormon every morning.
I'm going to start using that too. I'm actually going to start using that line.
I'm telling you, man, it for the most part, people, they'll do stuff. It'll set you off. Are they really offending you? Or is it just one of those things of like, yeah, I didn't care for that. Okay, there's a difference. That's one of those Bob Ottewill things that is just ingrained in my brain. And I've passed along to my boys as well.
Well, I'll tell you this. If Bob doesn't give you guys the advice that he does, you guys don't create what you do. And in kind of a roundabout way, none of us are sitting right here being able to talk because, I might have been at the tail end of it, but it certainly ended up having a big impact on me as well. So,
yeah, man, you look around the Denver sports media landscape, look in the national media landscape, right? With Lauren Gardner and Peter Burns and some of these people that have gone on. Mile High Sports, and I know Doug and I have talked about, it's one of the things that we're certainly proud of is the careers, to one degree or another that have, that Mile High Sports has either helped start or it's been a stepping stone or it's turned into, like you guys and what you're doing. That's a really cool legacy. And Bob was certainly a big part of helping us create that and creating that.
Yeah. And that's why we wanted to start with him.
Yep, for sure. Hey, fellas, not to run, but we're about to go to the backside of the moon here with Artemis.
You got a staffer.
And enjoy it. We know you're the space guy, but James, thanks so much. Continue to read James's stuff at denversports.com and be slow to take offense to what James writes.
That's right. Be slow to take offense to James. That's a great piece of advice.
There you go. Especially when I'm telling you that Jokic is flopping. He was, fellas. Hey, I appreciate you having me on, and it's an honor to write the story, to write the column. I'm thrilled that it got put into the magazine, and always happy to come on and talk to you guys about anything, but especially about Bob.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. Big thanks to James Merilatt. Honestly, it's the lead of the magazine, work from you, work from James, and work from Neil Devlin. Very much worth the pickup, or just the digital read. Take the time to go find it at milehighsports.com/magazine. So we've got one last thing to take care of, Doug, some of our weekly housekeeping deals. This is the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. We'll be back right after this.
Yo, I can guard pro in these.
I can guard you and route you up.
You sure about that?
You fellas looking for a quarterback?
Let's go!
You're right, Billy. These do bring out my eyes.
Every shoe for every athlete.
Dix is the GOAT.
There are those who say the modern world has made us lose touch with places like this. We say, that depends on what you're driving.
When I go to court, these aren't my clients, these are my friends. These are people that I believe in. And they have one shot, just one shot for justice. If they've come to me and we've gotten to trial, their life has been turned upside down in some awful way. I'm all they have. So if I haven't put the time in, if I haven't trained, if I haven't humbly looked in the mirror and thought about ways I can be better, and I don't present my best self in court, then I failed them. And that's what motivates me as a trial lawyer, because when this is over, that client goes home. And if I haven't done my best for him, I haven't been his champion, then I've failed.
Breaking news out of the the commercial break. I've been laughing for a good 15 seconds. Doug, welcome back to the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. Dan Mormon, editor-in-chief, ColoradoPreps.com. Doug Ottewill with me as always. Our guy Ryan Blackburn might be busy. I don't know if this is Ryan's area that he's got to touch on, but according to Pete Thamel, North Carolina, the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels are hiring Michael Malone as their new basketball coach. Interesting hire.
Of our last Preps issue.
And now he gets to go watch Bridget play every game. Bridget, of course, playing for the Tar Heels volleyball program, and it's one of those weird pieces of breaking news that came on. We would have loved to have James Merilatt for this.
Oh man, he's always been a Teflon Mike guy. I would like to get his take on this stuff. I'm sure you will be able to get his take on DenverFan.com here very shortly.
Yeah, that's probably worth checking out. But interesting hire for the Tar Heels. I like North Carolina. I've always been a North Carolina fan. I don't know what to think about it, Doug.
You know what? I think Mike Mullen could be a very good coach at that level. I mean, obviously he's a very good coach. I mean, he won an NBA championship, but he
Denver, which had never been done before.
He might fit the mold perfectly for a blue blood program like that. I will be curious though, because college basketball is just one wave of new guys every year. Michael Malone definitely liked his core. He liked that slow build. He liked veterans. He's not going to get work with a lot of seniors at North Carolina. That's for sure.
That's very true. So we're actually going to wrap things up. Kept the emphasis on the Bet Sisters and Bob Ottewill today, but we do have to point out our weekly letter winners and standouts for spring sports, and we'll obviously be more spring sports centric in the weeks moving forward ahead of state championship season. So I'll go ahead and get us started with Addison Smith of Fossil Ridge Girls Track. You can check out the story on ColoradoPreps.com from Bobby Reyes. She won the 456.26 seconds at the Altitude Invitational in Fort Collins. Sabercats actually went 1-2 in that race, Dougie. So good performance from the Fossil Ridge girls as they start gearing up to get ready for state track, which is in about 4 weeks.
Also, a nice piece on ColoradoPreps.com on that one as well.
Yeah, good job, Bobby.
I'm going to go out to the Plains, McClave baseball. Keelan Mallard, 17.2 innings pitched. Mallard has 37 strikeouts and 73 batters faced. I mean, I'm not a mathematician per se, but I'm pretty sure that's a pretty high rate of striking people out.
You have a 50% chance of getting struck out when you step into the batter's box against Mallard.
Yeah, and has an ERA of 0. Also a number that, I don't need a whole lot of calculus to understand. That's solid. A 0 ERA, not just 0, but 0.000, like 0.0. Man,
all the zeros.
You don't need to be Billy Bean to figure out that that's pretty solid. Keelan Mallard of McClave baseball.
And I think he's surrendered just 2 hits all year. So if guys are reaching base, he's either walking them or they're getting on by air.
Get him out of there.
Yeah. Jeez. I'll wrap it up with Molly Wilkinson, Riverdale Ridge Girls Soccer. She leads the state with 20 goals so far, and the Ravens are undefeated at 6-0-1. They do have a tie, but no losses yet so far for the Ravens. Riverdale Ridge kind of becoming a little bit of an athletic powerhouse these days.
Yes, sir. Hey, you said you're going to wrap it up, but I'm actually going to wrap it up for shout-outs. I got one more shout-out, and it's to you, kind of in a roundabout way, but more to the kids that you're going to be featuring. I don't know if people have caught it, but on all the Colorado Prep socials, website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, you can find it every week. I mean, we do these shout-outs on the show, but you're doing this throughout the week. There's a new series on all the Colorado Preps channels. Basically, it's an athlete profile. So it's a very uncreative name we've come up with, the Colorado Preps Athlete Profile of the Week. But Dan, you go out and you find a kid with a unique story. You give them 30 to 45 second platform on the video, do a quick interview with them, see what they're all about. And you can find it every week on all those channels. And it's presented by Stockman's Bank. A little shout out to our newest partner who stepped up and said, hey, this is something we like. This is cool. It's a new and unique way to feature more kids. So they're our partner on that. So shout out to you and the kids and Stockman's Bank. Check it out.
Weird way that came about. I was actually just in Buena Vista watching basketball earlier in the year and grabbed one of their wrestlers. Said, hey, I'm just going to film you. I just want you to tell me who you are, what you're going to school for, what you're doing. And it just kind of evolved. The first official one that was sponsored by Stockman's Bank was published last week. I went a little bit of the Homer route from a strict guinea pig standpoint, but Addie Dorsey, Manitou Springs Girls Golf, took second last year, trying to win a state title this year. Yeah, you can check it out. YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, or X, if we call it that now.
How many views say that has already? It was a lot.
It was 4 figures. I mean, we're Addie Dorsey talking for 30 seconds is actually going to surpass some of the state basketball highlight reels that we put together. So
that's the kind of exposure that you're giving kids every week. We love it.
That's all we're trying to do. So a couple housekeeping notes before we get away. In a couple of weeks, we will be broadcasting live from Welsher Golf Course during the Thomas Jefferson Invite on April 22nd. Part of it's to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the course, of course, helping out our friends at City of Denver Golf. We'll have more details on broadcast time, hopefully guests, and just more information. Hopefully we'll have that information next week, because I think the week that we're doing that, we will not have a Colorado Prep show that Monday, and instead we're just going to push it back to, I believe it's a Wednesday or Thursday for the broadcast up at Welsher. Doug, I'm not. Yeah, Doug, I'm not sure if you saw it, but injuries are disrupting the LA Lakers, and the Nuggets now have a realistic shot of jumping back into that number 3 seed in the Western Conference.
They're good.
Where do you get your Nuggets information when something like that happens?
I usually go to Ryan Blackburn over there at milehighsports.com or on all the socials.
That's right. His late night Nuggets hits do a great job of just summarizing everything you need to know. And I think we've got 4 regular season games remaining. The first of which is tonight against the Portland Trail Blazers. So if you want to know what's going on with the Nuggets, Ryan's your guy to go to. Speaking of that, number 38 on Sunday, the Nuggets head to San Antonio. You should head to number 38 to watch that game. Is that the regular season finale, Doug, when they go to San Antonio?
I believe so. I believe it is, yes.
Wrap up the regular season with Mile High Sports at number 38. We'll be there all day. It should be a fun atmosphere. I believe that's a 6:30 game Sunday night. Likewise, the number 1 seed is all but locked up with the Colorado Avalanche. Colleen Flynn and the Mile High hockey guys are locked in as the Avs gear up for a Stanley Cup run. I think they need 2 points to clinch up the number 1 seed, and then they can kind of sit McKinnon.
The Dallas game did a lot.
Yeah, the Dallas win over the weekend did a lot. They should be able to sit McKinnon, get everyone healthy to begin that playoff run. So that's going to be good for the Avalanche. And then, of course, Rocky season is underway. Home opener was on Friday. Yes, they gave up a touchdown in the first inning, but things, I think by all accounts, there's a little bit more encouragement for what the Rockies are going to do. So check out Drew Kreisman's coverage on milehighsports.com. And we've got Ryan Spilborough's over on the YouTube channel doing his stuff. And aside from that, Dougie, we're getting back into spring sports stuff this week. We're going to be back next week talking more build-up ahead of championship season. And then, of course, we'll be diving into more high school content from high school rankings, which I haven't been able to put the issue down, man. It's quality stuff.
It's a good issue.
So for James Merilatt, for Danny Bailey, Jermaine Stafford, we'll see you back here next week, man. We'll good luck with everything that you are working on today. And Doug Ottewill, this has been the Colorado Prep Show, presented by Upswing.